Hi, my name is Rebecca Sommer-Petersen, and I am participating in a video discussion project, a video blog, sponsored by the St. Nicholas Mission. Information available at St. Nicholas, themissionparish.org, not St. Nicholas, sorry, at themissionparish.org. And we're in cooperation with the International Council of Community Churches. So I am working on helping the parish to foster creative ministry, sharing ideas, because what we do is small community-based ministry projects to go into areas where people have either felt estranged from their church of origin, or they have not ever been able to really connect with a spiritual community, a faith community, or people who are physically unable to access their church community. We go in and provide church for them. We provide, Bishop David Dismas likes to call it mass to go, services to go. We're an independent organization, so not affiliated with any real denomination, but interdenominational. So we're able to go in and be church to people who sometimes cannot access their own church. What I do in my regular paid job is social work for Bay Path Elder Services, which is a social service agency serving elders in the community in Metro West Boston. And what I want to talk about today in terms of ministry ideas is ministering to the caregivers. There are a lot of people who find themselves in a situation where they're caring for elders, and many people find themselves in a situation where they're caring for both young people and elders, what we call the sandwich people, the sandwich generation, right? I'm one of those myself, so I can relate. And in my own work, I come across all the time people who face fatigue, compassion fatigue, we call it, or good old-fashioned burnout from feeling overburdened. And a lot of it has to do with feeling overscheduled. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit, is accessing a different sense of time. And that's where I think the spiritual, the Christian community in particular, can assist with caregiver nurturing. Because as in a pastoral sense, as Christians, we are called to think about time in an eternal way, from the very, very, very beginning of Scripture to the very, very, very end, from Genesis 1 to Revelation. We are given a sense of eternal time, God's time, which really, we know on a basic level, transcends human time and was engineered in a cosmic realm that we really can't understand. Humans have engineered for themselves the sense of hours, the sense of measuring time through hours, through days, through the concept of the 24-hour day or the 60-minute hour. That's certainly not something that's naturally occurring. That's not something that was given to us spiritually. That's not part of eternal time. That's really a human construct. It's a human result of evolution, more or less. It's the way we have decided to construct our society. But God's time is more of a basic sense of time. And I think we are all called to exist in both of those worlds because we need to keep a schedule. We need to figure out what time of day it is just to exist in our culture. But in order to nurture ourselves, in order to relax, in order to reconnect on a spiritual level, we really do need to keep a sense of God's time. And good old Ecclesiastes, made popular by the band The Byrds, tells us that, of course, there are seasons, right? To everything there's a season and a purpose, time to every purpose, under heaven. And that's a way into thinking about God's time. And that's a popular concept. That's why I chose that one, because people know it. If you say that, people understand what that means. A time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, etc., etc. Well, Ecclesiastes goes on, and that's in chapter 3, the whole thing I just talked about. But in chapter 7, Ecclesiastes goes on to discuss the basic knowledge of life and death, and a more serious tone to it. Chapter 7 talks about, is labeled in my Bible anyway, it's labeled wisdom. And here it opens, the first 5 or 6, the first 6 verses opens, a good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of death better than the day of birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For death is the destiny of every man. The living should take this to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, because a sad face is good for the heart. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. It is better to heed a wise man's rebuke than to listen to the song of fools. Like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. So there's a lot packed in there. The notion that death is better even than birth, and that a house of mourning, where someone is mourning a passing, is even more desirable than a house of feasting and celebration. And that somehow wisdom is connected with that, with the notion of death and mourning, and that fools are more drawn toward feasting and laughter and merrymaking. I think I can kind of relate to that. I can understand it. And I'll tell you why. Because in my experience anyway, people who are not very deep thinkers are often, and people who are sort of superficial, are often drawn to laughter and to times of celebration that make them feel good. They're drawn to simple pleasures. And those same people sometimes run away from or cannot, have a really difficult time facing harsh realities like death. So that, I think, is what this is talking about. Getting to that deeper sense of life, which is present at the moment of death. Because as one ages and as very old people begin to approach death, they also begin to kind of mark time backwards, right? Often people will tell you stories about when they were young, and they may even get annoying with it. They may tell you the same story. You have 90, 100-year-old people wanting to tell you about when they were 5, back in the good old days when, you had a horse and buggy taking you to church instead of a souped up sports car. And they may tell you that story 100,000 times until you feel like that's the only thing they know. What I think is going on there, having worked in several years with this in this population, is the concept of giving time to those in a younger generation. They leave themselves with you. They're trying to impart a sense of who they are on the younger generation so that they can leave some sense of themselves, because they, on some level, understand that they're moving on. People and personality has a lot to do with it. You may have a very old person who's also very shallow and doesn't really tend to care a whole lot about what goes on. But they may also be telling you the same stories for the same reason, that they just want to leave whatever sense they have of their time with you. And I would also say that by the same level, on the same level, very young people, very young children who don't have a concept of death and do not have a concept of um, eternity or even really hours, days, any of that. Toddlers, preschoolers, they're also going to tell you the same stories over and over and over again. And that, I think, is one thing that very young people and very old people have in common. They have no use for schedules. That's left to those of us in between, the caregivers, right? The people who are managing the very young and the very old. We have a very well-defined concept of when things start, how much time we have to be in a certain place or how much time we have to get ready to go to a certain place. And it can drive us absolutely batty. I know it drives me absolutely batty when either the very young or the very old don't get that. They don't appear to get that. One example is when you're driving somewhere with I have 3 children now who are teenagers, and they really kind of don't talk at all anymore. But when they were young, when they were preschoolers, even young school-age children, they talked incessantly all the time, would not stop talking, and usually telling me the same silly story over and over again. The neighbor had a cat who ran through the mud and left some really creative paw prints on the driveway. Didn't I see that? And I may sort of half be listening, and I may think the first time, oh, that's cute, thanks for telling me. And then I don't want to hear it anymore. And I'm going to tell them, stop, stop, stop. Well, what they're really saying is, listen to me. What this kid really wants is for you to just get down to their level and listen. Stop your time clock for just a few minutes, however long you can. Same thing is true with the very old people, and that's why I think they have that one element in common with each other. The very elderly also don't want to hear. They tell me every single day in my work, slow down. Why are you talking so fast? Why do you feel like you have to move this meeting along? I do have to move the meeting along, and I don't necessarily want to hear their same story about World War II or about when they were 5 years old and they had a wart that was removed by a doctor who got paid in chickens. I don't necessarily need to hear that. But what they're telling me is they want me to stop, to slow down, and to listen to them. That's it. So how do we do that? The point is, how do we get there from here? So in accessing our sense of cosmic time, we are given the gift of prayer and meditation. A lot of people find that they want to be able to go every day and just pray in the same spot every day. Yoga is very, very, very popular right now. Mindfulness is kind of a buzzword in today's culture. Even in my agency, which is a sectarian agency, uses mindfulness and spirituality for groups dealing with caregivers and caregiver nurturing, caregiver support. What that has to do with is just being quiet, being able to find maybe the same spot every day or a different position of your body, paying attention to how you're breathing, slowing down, relaxing, doing some exercises. And that's a topic for a different day. But the point is that you can access the sense of God time. You can pray. You can just ask God to be with you